Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar on why member intelligence matters in 2020. Today, the webinar is being hosted by myself, Trevor Kloop. I'm the Senior Marketing Associate here at Jonas Club Software. And with me today, I have Matt Cooper, who is the Account Manager for Western and Southwest regions. Matt, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Trevor.
So just before we get started, everyone, I just have a couple of housekeeping items to go over. As you might have seen in the chat box, everybody is muted for today's session. We have about 60 people registered, so it would be too many to have on the call. But we will be allowing questions to be asked in the questions tab. So you can find that in the GoToWebinar panel on your screen. Looks like this. And we'll be monitoring that, and we'll save some time at the end to hopefully answer any questions you have. You can also make your GoToWebinar screen full size if you find it a little bit small on your computer screen. Just give you a bit more real estate to hopefully see what we're going to show you today. And the webinar is going to be recorded so that we will send it out afterwards, and you can share it or watch it again if you need to at a future date. So I just want to give everybody a bit of a background on Jonas Club Software. I'm guessing that many people on the line today have probably had a touch point with Jonas Club Software already, maybe with Jonas Club Management or their Jonas Encore user. But Jonas Club Software is actually comprised of these multiple brands. So we have our back office products here in the blue teal color. And then we also have some web brands such as Members First and Clubhouse Online, which maybe some of you have used. And then we have our value-added benefit services, which MemberInsight that we'll be speaking about today is included in. So these are some add-ons that you can use to enhance your club and club experience. Now, Jonas Club Software is made up of about 250 employees, and we are located in 5 offices around the world. And if you added up all the installations of our different products, we have about 5,000 total installations. Now, this image is our Helping Clubs Thrive image, and it's an overview of all the different areas within the club that our software can assist you with. So we break it up into 5 kind of categories: operations and reporting, finance and accounting, food and beverage, member engagement, and retail and activities. And within those, we have different product offerings that can help your business. And the key to this is that all of these different areas are integrated. So whether it's using your online mobile app, or maybe it's your point of sale, perhaps it's booking tea times, these things all work together in a cohesive way, providing a single solution for your club. All right, now let's move into why you guys joined us today, which is why member intelligence matters in 2020. And just go over what we're going to cover here. So we'll take a look at why member intelligence matters, why most club surveys are not working as well as they could be, what is MemberInsight, and Matt's going to give us a demo of that product, and then we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. All right, so let's start off with why member intelligence matters, and I've got a story for you. So my friend, who is about my age, we're in our 30s, he's a very avid golfer, and this year he decided in 2019 to finally take the plunge and join a private club. A lot of us that play golf with him are starting to have kids, and he was finding it difficult to get us out for a regular game on the weekends or whatnot. And so he decided, with the amount of free time he had and the passion he has for the game, it would make sense for him to join a private club. And throughout the year, he played about 3 times a week at his club, usually after work or maybe once on the weekends. And he really enjoyed the course. He liked the golf aspect of it. He also participated in the weekly men's event on Thursdays, I think it was. And after that event, he would typically go to the dining room and have dinner with the guys, maybe a drink or two. And he would sometimes bring out his wife for, a weekend meal. So he was probably visiting the club on a given week 3 to 4 times. So this is kind of just a snapshot or an anecdote of a 30-something member. And my question for everybody on the line right now is, based on this information, the fact that he played 3 times a week, he maybe practiced once or twice when he'd go to play or sometimes just go to practice. He was participating in a weekly event, and he really enjoyed the food and dining at the club. What is the likelihood that he is going to return in 2020? So because I'm asking this question, you're probably thinking there must be a catch. And the truth is, unfortunately, he is not going to go back in 2020. And for a few reasons. Well, he had a few kind of bumps along the way, especially in the early goings. And one thing that he kind of didn't particularly like was that nobody at the club had asked him how he was getting on or how his first couple of weeks, months were going at the club. No one reached out to get his feedback. Now, the other thing was the membership demographic was older at this club, and that's really not something he could control or the club could control in a given season. But when he was looking for clubs to join, he was kind of given the impression that there was a similar demographic of guys his age that would be playing at the same times, but that really wasn't the case. And most of the members that were playing kind of stopped at around 2 p.m. and he was trying to find games at around 4 and 5. And he did have some poor service experiences, and he wasn't comfortable kind of complaining about those, and he never really got a chance to tell anyone in management about them. So these things, along with the cost and the lack of kind of new golf friends that he met, made him decide to not continue for the next year. Now, this is probably pretty common when it comes to club attrition, because stats show that 80% of a club's attrition in any given year is usually by members who have only been at the club for 2 years or less. So it's really important, not only from a feedback perspective, but making sure that your new members are heard, making sure that they're getting what they want and need out of the club experience, because they're at the highest risk to potentially leave. So based on the information I told you about my friend, again, I know that's just a small anecdote, we have 2 different things that we typically use to kind of predict or determine whether or not our membership is happy. 2 of those things would be the utilization metrics of our members and the experiential metrics of our members. Utilization metrics could be something like how often they're coming to the club, what facilities they're using, maybe how much they're spending when they come, are they doing any discretionary spending? Now, experiential metrics, that's actually trying to get an idea of how your member feels about the times they've spent at the club. And the only really way to do that is to probably survey them, ask them proactively how their experience is going and getting some feedback from them. Now, lots of companies let you send manual surveys. So I'm guessing many, if not all of you on the line today, are probably using some kind of survey tool and probably sending a survey out to your membership maybe once, maybe twice a year. So now I just want to kind of talk about why a lot of surveys that we see clubs sending out aren't really that effective. So as I mentioned, there's a good chance that a lot of the surveys that are being sent are annual, one time a year. They're in a long format, asking everything from, what their opinion is about capital planning, or maybe some of the specific decisions that need to be made about the golf course, or maybe it's whether or not they want to install a fitness facility, these kind of big questions. They're also not automated. So it puts a lot of onus on club management to obviously put the survey together, send it, And then the hard part, which is taking all that information in and sifting through it and, finding those people who maybe have some concerns and then having to go back and address those. If you figure a club membership of about 500 members and you get a 50% participation rate on your annual survey, that's maybe 250 answers that you have to filter through and then take action on some of those. So it can be a pretty daunting task. As I mentioned, because it's sent annually, the chance to get some feedback right after the member's survey experience or their visit to the club it's too late. So if somebody had a poor service experience maybe in June and you're only sending out your annual survey at the end of the season, maybe late September, or for our southern clubs, maybe it's the opposite, late March, there's a very good chance that that member is not going to remember or put down a specific experience that they might have not been happy with earlier that year. And the chance for you to have addressed it and turned it into a positive is gone. And that takes us to our next point. We really believe that following up on your members' feedback is the most important thing. Now, some of your survey questions, like I said, are going to be kind of votes or trying to determine what the membership is looking for from a facility or planning perspective. But when it actually just comes to the service experience, if somebody has had a negative one, the sooner you take action and follow up, the better, and the chances of keeping your membership happy are higher. And that's basically what MemberInsight was created to accomplish. So MemberInsight is an all-in-one member intelligence tool. And it takes advantage of some automation, which makes it easier for you to send out surveys and collect feedback. It has a really great kind of CRM within that, the customer relationship management tool, that allows you to track and communicate with your members so that everybody can go in and see where the state of the conversation is and if any follow-up needs to continue. And it's also great because it allows you to evaluate and benchmark how your club is doing. And it does so using a thing called the MPS survey, which I'll show you here. It's fairly straightforward. So an MPS survey is something that you might have seen before. It gets sent out often after you've made a purchase at a store when they have your email address. And it asks a simple question of how likely you are to recommend Jonas Club software to someone you know. Now for a club, we could change that to how likely are you to recommend dining at Mystic River Club to someone you know. And then the user is given a choice of 0 to 10. And if they choose a 10 or a 9, that's considered a positive score. And that helps you. That shows that you're doing a good job. If they submit an 8 or a 7, that's a neutral score. And it doesn't hurt you, but it doesn't help you. And lastly, if they score you a 6 below to 0, that means they've had a negative experience. And that's going to hurt your score. And those are the people that we typically think you should reach out to and find out why the service wasn't what they were expecting. It does allow you to send multi-question surveys. So similarly to what you're using today, if you're using some kind of survey tool online, Matt's going to show you some of the different types of questions it'll allow you to ask. And it's also great because it allows you to set up frequency limits. If you've got members visiting the club on a regular basis, maybe 3+ times a week, you don't want to be sending them surveys every time they visit, and you can customize the frequency using the tool. Like I earlier mentioned, the automation takes a little bit of the burden off of you at the club to send out the surveys as well as follow up on the feedback you receive. And because the tool is integrated with Jonas Club Management or Jonas Encore, whenever a member comes to the club and they have a point of sale interaction, maybe they come to the dining room for a drink or a snack, or maybe they've stopped by the pro shop to pick up maybe some balls or some new equipment, or they've stopped at the snack shack while they've been at the club, maybe going to the pool. These things can trigger a survey, and it doesn't require any heavy lifting on your part. And then once the survey has been sent and it's been filled out, there's even more automation that can take place so that you're not necessarily having to reach out to every single response. And that brings up the closed loop process. So what's really cool is that when somebody responds to a survey, if they respond in a negative way, you can have an instant communication get sent back to that person saying that you've received their feedback and that someone will be getting in touch. The other great thing is it creates to-do lists for anyone who creates or sends negative feedback. And those to-do lists can be assigned to specific club managers or club department managers. So if you had someone submit negative feedback for a dining experience, that can automatically send a notification to the dining room manager or your food and banquets manager that they need to follow up with that person and hopefully find out what happened. Lastly, there's some cool machine kind of learning where as certain words get repeated often in feedback, those words start to get pulled out and you can actually search by these keywords. So maybe somebody on your staff is getting a lot of positive feedback and you want to reward them. You can go into MemberInsight, search for that person's name, and Matt will show you an example of that when he opens up the product. And as I mentioned before, the tool allows you to evaluate and benchmark yourself. So when you start to accumulate a score using the NPS system, you'll be able to see over time how your club is doing overall, and you'll actually be able to break it down by department so you can get individual scores for food and dining, for golf, tennis, spa, fitness, whatever it is that you want to set up. And you can start to chart that over time to see if you're improving, staying the same, or maybe worst case scenario, getting worse. But the other thing you can do is actually see how you're doing relative to other golf or city clubs in your area or of similar size. Anyone who's using the system today can participate. It's all anonymous. You don't actually see the club's name, but you can get an idea of where you rank. Now, just to give you some examples of what is kind of the norm for scores. So Apple, the technology giant, which I'm sure many of you have used their products, they use NPS as a benchmark for their customer service experience. And right now they're at about a 49. And that's kind of the tops when you look at a list of companies that are using NPS online. Apple is one of the highest rated. For a typical dining venue such as restaurants, cafes, and these things, the best you're going to see is in the 20s. So that'll kind of give you an idea of where your club would rank once you start to accumulate some scores from feedback. All right. So now I'm going to hand it over to Matt, and he's actually going to take you into MemberInsight to give you some more in-depth detail of the product and how you can set certain things up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Trevor. And 1 second here. I'm going to start sharing my screen so everybody can see. Make sure that I'm on the correct one. All right, perfect. So, Trevor, can you confirm we are on the MemberInsight screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, perfect. All right, so what I'll do for everybody here is just kind of walk you through your main landing page, which is going to be the dashboard, and then the to-do list area, some responses, and this is going to be the primary bulk of where your time is going to be spent, depending if you're the general manager, membership director, food and beverage. You can have as many users in here assigned as you would like. So every single club, department head and assistant department head, anything along those lines can have a specific user. And as Trevor mentioned to earlier, that's going to play a part in that automation for those follow-up and contact points within specific member surveys. After we show kind of the front end of it, I'll go really quickly into the back end to show you how you can create some really unique membership segments to target with specific surveys as well for one-off to kind of rope them back into the club and get them on board again and realize why they joined the club in the beginning. So I will walk through this now. what we have here is going to be essentially your dashboard landing page. You can drill down into each one of these. So if you want to see your departments versus your relationship surveys versus your one-off surveys, those are going to be like your yearly ones. You can benchmark against the departments as a whole. And you can see where the departments, these are going to be your food and beverage, your golf, spa, hotel, if you have that tied in at the property as well. And it's going to show their detractors, the passive percentages, and then their promoter percentages. From here as well, you do have your overall NPS score for the club at 17. It's going to give you some statistics on dropouts. These are somebody who scored a 6 or below. They want to be contacted. You tried reaching out to them 3 separate occasions via face-to-face, email, text message, and you haven't had success in contacting them. It falls into this dropout percentage. Your follow-up percentage as well, those are going to be related to those to-do tasks. So if you say set the criteria of every survey needs a follow-up, even if it's just a thank you for taking the time, or just the ones that are scored as a detractor that require follow-up, that's going to play off the percentage here, as well as your loyalty shift. So anybody who went from a detractor for a score and then made that for a department, specifically food and beverage, the previous survey they scored at it as a 5, so it'd be a detractor, and they become a promoter and scored as a 9 or 10 next time they're surveyed. That's going to give a +2 loyalty shift, whereas if they were a passive and scored a 7 or 8 and then scored it as a promoter, it'd only be a +1 loyalty shift. So that's how you get that number. As Trevor mentioned, besides benchmarking your departments and your relationship surveys against each other, you can benchmark against other clubs. For example, you can enter in the type of club. So if you're a ski club, a yacht club, or a city club, you can select that there, as well as some membership sizes, or if you want to go down into annual dues as well. So you can really narrow that down to get some specific club types that are just like yours to see where their benchmark scores for overall. Other areas on here that are pretty important, you're going to have your star performers. This comes in with that tag word automation side of things. So you're going to have all your staff and teammates in there as well, for servers to instructors, everybody that's going to run through the system. You're going to have their first and last name there. So if they are mentioned in any surveys, it's going to bring them up. And if it's a positive review, just like that loyalty shift, we'll give a positive number. Whereas if you're getting a passive, it's not going to impact, versus a detractor, which is going to give a negative score, and allows you to really track that coaching moment with a specific employee if need be. You do have those specific tag words are all going to fall under a tag group. So anything related to staff and service can be a tag group. You could have food quality as a tag group, greens for golf, parking. These are all determined with each individual club, what you want to add. And then once you do have that tag group built, that's where you start dropping the specific words themselves into there, so you can get a benchmark score of, hey, how is staff and service doing? I see that we have 92 positives, 66 neutrals, and 32 negatives. And you can pull into those negative reviews as well, which I'll pull up to here shortly. And then you have some as well as the latest changes for any positives. And then you do have some statistics down at the bottom for your email response rate. Standard messaging service, we are going to have more to come on this here shortly in the future, which is going to essentially send a text message for a survey response based off of that point of sale transaction, as well as some reminder rates through both of those opportunities. From there, we'll jump into the to-do list, and this is going to play off of each individual user. So if you are golf only, you're not going to see surveys related to the spa. You're only going to see ones that have to do with action required specific to your department that you're assigned. So for example, these ones you do see where they are all unassigned. That is where you can actually go in and manually, if there's somebody else you want to drop it on for follow-up, saying if Mike had mentioned he worked with Emma, you could have Emma follow up with him specifically, as well as with the closed loop area. Anything that's related to spa would automatically assign to the spa manager and then the other important staff that have access to here. Specific to Trevor's story there about his friend that left the club, you see that Mike scored a 5 here. It looks like he didn't have too great of an experience at the spa, but you want to find out, hey, has he been surveyed before? How have his interactions been? So you can drill down into the history, and this is going to take a look at, okay, like Mike really hasn't had too great of an experience this year, whether it be related to the golf, the club as a whole could be cleaner versus poor service at the spa. So he's going to be a member that you definitely want to make sure he's been followed up with, engaged in, and then hopefully get that experience turned back around to help him and help the club itself keep him and retain him as a member moving forward. So the to-do list, as well as it's going to be able to pull up if you want to have any detractors, passes, or promoters in here. There's no follow-up assigned in this system for promoters, but like I mentioned earlier, if you want to have every survey that's commented on to have a follow-up, you can activate those promoters and passes within the settings areas as well. So that's the member side of engaging with them. There is the tool here as well within responses. So for example, you have John, who is a bartender, and Matt Cooper gets mad because last weekend John cut me off because I overindulged and didn't want to have any more drinks. So I go to the GM and say, hey, you know what, like, I'm sick of John. He's been terrible. I've had bad experiences with him. I really don't like the guy. So you can come into the back end of the system here, and within this all tags area, you can specifically search for John, pull him up as a tag word, and then any survey where John is mentioned is going to bring up all the history on him. So based off of what I told the GM, I'm probably just mad that John cut me off and did his job appropriately, because John has some pretty good scores in here. It looks like he only has one passive. Everything else related to John has been absolutely pleasant. So you can find out, hey, you know, this was a one-off experience as a member. There's no coaching that needs to be done on John's behalf. Maybe get us a recap of what happened from him, versus if you went in here and you search for John and find out that he's had some very negative experiences with him, somebody mentions he has an attitude, that's definitely going to be somebody you want to reach out to on the back end and have that coaching moment with them and try to rectify the situation and figure out if it's something you guys can correct moving forward. So you have the member side as well as that staff side that you can really work on those situations with. Lastly, we'll get into as well is the recipients on this end. If you do have a member that says, I don't ever want to be contacted, you can unsubscribe on an individual basis, all those members, simply by selecting that member and selecting unsubscribe as well. So you have that flexibility for that member that does not care, they never want to be surveyed. You can go in here as well too, and if you know the member on a first name, last name basis, you do this quite often, you can pull all the survey history here related to that one specific member as well. So from this area, I will flip over into the settings section, and this is where everything gets kind of fun and where you can start to build those really unique segments so you can reach out to specific members to re-engage them in the club, or for Trevor's example, to kind of survey those new members and see how they're dealing with their experience when they go play their first round of golf. How was that round of golf versus their first dining experience? How did that go? So you get that control here on the back end. So branding and locations, those really aren't going to change. Within the locations area, though, you can choose to have these surveys added to social media. So the Twitter page or the Facebook page for the club, as well as LinkedIn. If a member does score a 9 or a 10, you can have that automatically populate to that page saying, giving a survey recap based off of this member's experience. That you can tag on and off as needed. Some clubs don't want anything pulling through social media, as well as members do have the option to respond anonymously, and then they can choose not to be contacted with follow-up, so that can pull that off of there and will not automatically push it through to social media. So what we'll do here is the example of the surveys and the flexibility. So we'll jump into the survey option really quick. I'll show you an example of the question flexibility, and then where you can set those limits as well, and then we'll wrap it up and take some questions on that. So the first area, coming into the surveys, once it loads up here. So this first section is where you're going to build your segments. So you do have the option to upload a CSV file. So if you do have a New Year's party coming up and it is semi-private, where guests can attend with a member, or if you do allow guests to an outing or an event, as long as if you capture that email address, you can upload a CSV file. It's very simple. It's just first name, last name, email. Upload the whole entire file, and you can send a one-off survey related specifically to that one event that happened. And this is where you can actually build your segments. So for example, if you want to get in and create a new segment, and let's say I want to only target members who have been at the club for X amount of time that really haven't been utilizing it as often as we would like them to. So you can add filters here. So the first one I'm going to add is membership join date. And I'm going to go with more than, we'll go 365 days ago. So that means that they've been a member for a year. And then the next filter I'm going to add is last attendance. And these are all linked to point of sale. So if they haven't done anything through point of sale, purchased anything from the club within 60 days, it's going to pull them into this segment, as well as the last filter that I'm going to add on here is I only want to look at active members. You can survey members who left the club if you want to send something out asking, hey, why did you leave? Where did you go? What would you suggest for improvement? You do have that option as well. But from here, you're going to look at members that have been there for at least a year. They have not utilized the club within the last 60 days, and they're still of active membership status. And then you say you create that survey question that says, hey, Matt, we miss you at the club. Please select one of these complimentary services, be it dinner for two, a spa service, a round of golf. And then that automatic survey, once they answer that, your membership team can reach out to them, your food and beverage director, your chef, whichever department it pertains to, set up that date to bring them back in. And then what you can do is add this as an ongoing survey. So anytime that somebody falls into that bucket category of 365 days of membership, haven't been at the club in 60 days, they're still active, as soon as they hit that 61 days where they haven't been there, it's going to automatically send them this survey to rope them and re-engage them back in the club. So you have that option. On the flip side, you can change this attendance to 1 day ago, join day of less than 60 days ago. So if you want to only survey your members that have been there for 2 months or less that just had a dining experience, a golf round, a spa experience, you can send out that survey to get kind of the perception of how members are receiving, the new members are receiving different areas of the club, make sure that the service is up to par and that they're getting what they need out of their experience. The next area that we do have in here are the survey options. So this is where you're going to actually see the NPS questions. So right now it's checked off, but this is a very basic example. How likely are you to recommend, if this is the restaurant, it could be the tap room, to friends and family, someone you know, a colleague, and you can, within other, you can type anything you want here, as well as within the actual criteria here. So if there's some other area you'd like to fill in, you have that. This is what's going to give you the NPS score. So like we said, 6 or below is a detractor, 7 and 8 is a neutral, 9 and 10 is a positive. And then from there, you have the commenter options. So this is where those tag words are going to pull. If they've had a great experience, then it can tag in those servers that were just above and beyond, went out of their way to take care of the member, versus if they had a negative experience and they kind of give you why, and it's going to pull in if it's, oh, well, food quality was cold, very easy remedy to that one, comp their next meal, they're good to go again. So it gives you that option as well. And then if it's your yearly survey and you don't want to include the NPS question, you can simply select do not include, and then it's only going to add in that additional question set. So for example, what those question set look like, or give you an example of flexibility here. So it's not just the same type of question over and over. These are all pretty much asking the same thing based off of food quality, but there's different ways to do it. You have sliding scale questions, multiple choice, star rating. You also have another sliding scale to break it out between food quality and service and selection. You do have grid answers. This one's actually really good for golf outings that have multiple areas to it. So if they play the round in the morning versus check-in, how check-in went versus how food quality went for lunch versus how pace of play, course condition. So you can add multiple questions into here with the grid format, as well as, once again, another version of the 1 to 5 rating with a short answer type question associated with that rating as well. So it gives you a perfect example of those different types of questions. So it's not just saying, please explain how your food went for this event, or just a multiple choice and having 20 of these in a row. The flexibility you do have here as well is there's no limit on questions you can ask. So if you want to add an additional question set for your yearly survey, that is 50 questions, you can build that out. If it's only a 5-question survey that you do related to a quarterly one, or if you just want to have that NPS score for every single time that you do have a food and beverage dining experience or a round plate or anything along those lines, or a game of tennis, you can have that put in there to just have that one single NPS question. So you do not have to include an additional question set. The last area is going to be the limits. So once again, I'm an avid shopper at Old Navy. Great clothes for my son because they're super cheap and get him a ton of them. And they send me surveys constantly between all three brands that they have. So at first I was answering quite often. Then it got to the point where I'm like, okay, they're asking me 20 question surveys. It's taking me 10 minutes, 3 a week. I'm not doing it anymore. So this is where you can control how often that those surveys are going out. So if you do want to survey those new members on a day-to-day basis when they are utilizing those new areas of the club, you can set that to a 1 day in between any survey, up to 4 weeks. And as well as those relationship surveys, these are going to be your quarterly ones, your yearly ones. You can set that in between 1 and 12 months. And then your minimum time between department surveys. This is going to be, once again, related to those food and beverage experiences, a game of tennis played, anything that processes through the point of sale between each specific department. That's going to limit those as well. And then you can choose time of day for sending out those surveys. I believe this is an Eastern time zone. I still have yet to get a confirmation on that one, but I will have that for you guys. But this is the time of play or time of sending surveys out. The last area that we'll go to is going to be closing the loop, just to show how easy it is to add those new teammates. So if you do have a new maitre d' for your events that comes on board, once you do add them as a new user in here, which is within the settings, adding them as a new user, you can just select them, and then you can drag and drop for each department that they're going to have to follow up with. If you do have multiple users that are going to be within the same department, you can highlight all three and drag them all over for follow-up. And what this is going to do, if Matt Cooper, if myself, follows up with a survey before Alyssa or the administrator for the site does, it's not going to cue them on their to-do list. It's going to say that action's already taken and it's been resolved. So it's not like the member's going to get bombarded with 3 different phone calls from 3 different teammates. It's going to be the first one, first come, first serve for that as well. So with that, that pretty much wraps up the whole entire front end. And like we said, once everything's set up and running, the most of your time is going to be spent on this dashboard page. Oops, let me get over to my actual site here. The most of your time is going to be spent on that dashboard page. And what I meant to show earlier too is where you can actually benchmark your departments. That's the last piece. So you can see that the golf shop here is doing the best out of the restaurant, spa, golf course to find out, hey, hotel's having some issues here. Looks like the primary response rate is detractor. Let's follow up with the team and look into those surveys in depth and see what's going on. So what we'll do is I do see there's a few questions that have come up. And Trevor, do you want to read those off to me? Then I can answer them. And if I can't, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, so the first one is a pretty good question. Can you please show us how we might use the reporting tools for employee end-of-year reviews? And I can maybe make a suggestion first, and you can follow up on that, Matt. Yeah. But when you search within the responses tab, you're able to search for your specific employees if they are mentioned. And once you've done a search on any of those keywords, you are able to then export the CSV information specific to that source. So you can, do one of those for each of your employees that has been mentioned. On the other side, you could probably do something departmentally if you're going to be doing reviews with your departmental managers. But how about you, Matt? Do you have any other ways or additions to that?
Yep, exactly what Trevor said. So you have the option where you can search within the responses and then export all those related to that specific employee. But the way to probably do it best, or I shouldn't say the best way to do it, a way to get the whole entire department as a whole, from this reporting section here, you do have the NPS reporting tool. And what this is going to allow you to do is you can add some filters to here, as well as you can filter off a department. So if you want to see just for, go department surveys, got the club, and if you just want to see how the restaurant's been doing, and then you can also add in specific filters. So if you want to see, and these are all related to members, so if you want to see how members that have been there at the club for less than a year are feeling about the survey, this is where you can have the membership time we'll go less than 1 month, or you can select unknown. And these are going to check the survey responses from all your new members. This is really just a test system, so I don't have too much data flowing across, but the actual pull down into those responses, let me clear this filter here so I can see some more. You can expand this, And this is going to show everything from positive, neutral to negative scores. And then you can export this into a CSV file. And then you can go and filter from if you want to see your top scores at the bottom versus at the top. And then just like we said too, from that recipient page or the response page, you can pull based off of keywords and tag words and pull those over as well. And you will see this does add tag groups. So if there is a mention in here with service, so if you have just a staff tag group with all your staff name, you can then filter to just the tag group staff, and then you can see all your staff name mentions in there as well. So just depends on how you want to set it up on the back end.
Nice. Yeah, that reporting area we didn't really cover today, but definitely allows you to drill down and get the specific information that you want based on how you've been using the survey tool. So the next question, which I think was to be expected, is what's the module's cost and how much does Jonas assist in setting it up for the club?
Okay, perfect. So right now, the setup fee for this, which is a one-time charge, it's $1,000 for setup. And then that also includes making sure that some of your, if there's cleanup that needs to be done with your partitions within your point of sale or any other groups that you want to break out a little bit, our team will assist you in making sure that your point of sale is pulling the data across correctly so you can report on it better. And as well as some assistance with showing you how to set up the surveys. Our team can make some recommendations of what types of surveys that the clubs are asking. I'm also involved in that as well. So if you find out, hey, like Matt, can you reach out to some clubs that are using it today and give us an example of their tournament surveys that get the best response or their event surveys that get the best response rate, I'm more than happy to reach out to those clubs and get you some examples of the surveys that they're actively using. So the setup fee is $1,000, and then it's $200 a month to run this. So it's $2,400 a year to be running this survey tool.
Matt, are there any additional costs based on the number of surveys that you send?
Unlimited. So you can send as many surveys as you want, as often as you want. There's no charge per survey. So it's one size fits all, and that's the same way for users as well. You could have 5 users in here for the club, or you can have 500 users in here for the club. There's no difference in cost for either of those.
Okay, good to know. Let me just check here. What can you do if a member doesn't want to be contacted for follow-up, but still wants to receive surveys? Is that possible?
So yes, I believe we have one on here. Let me just look at these to-dos real quick. So they do have an option to select that they do not want follow-up for their survey. I do not have an example on here, but you'll see there's a red flag that shows up. Let me see if Mike has it here. He does not. So there's a red flag that comes up that says does not want to be contacted. So that's one option that you have, as well as if they want to submit a response anonymously. When you're actually in the settings here with each survey that is created, you can, it might be on this one or it might be on the other one, you do have the option to select anonymous responses, which gives the choice to the member if they want to respond anonymously or not. So I believe that is under the sender options. It is not. It might be under this one. Apologize here, I'm getting down a rabbit hole now.
That's all right. I just wanted to know if it was possible, or the user just wanted to know if it was possible.
Yep, that is definitely possible. See, there
the other
anonymous responses right there is where you can have that selected.
Nice. Another follow-up to the billing. Is it done at one-time fee or is it done monthly?
It is billed a one-time fee on there. If there is a cancellation that would happen, say for example, you sign up for it, you use it for a year and a half, and you only use it for the second part or the first half of that second year, there are options to get that refunded there.
Okay. All right, I'm going to leave the questions open for another 30 minutes or 30 seconds to a minute. If there's no other questions, I just want to thank everybody for coming today and make sure here. sure I didn't miss anyone.
Yep, and then Trevor, if you can put my my contact information up there as well for everybody to see. So if there is follow-up questions, if you want to go into a much deeper dive into this and look at the actual survey building process, I'm more than happier to jump on there with you guys on a one-to-one basis, or myself with some other teammates at the club, because I can speak about this platform for 2 hours nonstop. So I condensed it there as much as I could for everybody, but I'm more than happy to take a separate look at this with anybody who wants some more information on it as well.
Great. Well, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time. I know there's probably really busy schedules going on with the holidays and planning for all those great parties the clubs will be having. So you can see here on the presentation that Matt's contact details are available. We will be sending a follow-up with the recording as well as Matt's contact info. So if you do have any other questions, we'll definitely get back to you as soon as we can. But if we're not speaking with you between now and the holidays, I want to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season and all the best to start 2020. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.